Welcome, neighbors, to This Week in South Baltimore, a new podcast brought to you by SouthBaltimore.com. This weekly podcast will provide you with a weekly roundup of all news and events in South Baltimore. If you need to know what's going on here in Sobo, you got to call this one guy. His name is Kevin Lynch, founder, creator, owner of SouthBaltimore.com. What's going on, Kevin?
How's it going? Nice chatting with everybody. How's it going, Nathan?
Going great, man. How are you?
Very good. Looking forward to the weekend. Weather looks pretty good, so can't complain.
Another beautiful day in a COVID world.
Yeah. I guess the quarantine's becoming less quarantined by the day. Everyone's kind of figuring out what they can get away with, and it's nice. We got restaurants with outdoor seating and indoor seating back open now, and a lot of museums are starting to open this week, which we covered this week on the site. So really, in a lot of ways, things are getting pretty close to back to normal. Things aren't going to be at capacity in most places, but there's really a lot you can do and start enjoying that city lifestyle again.
So tell us a little bit about what kind of stands out the most in terms of you mentioned there's some restaurants opening back up through southbaltimore.com. I've heard that there's going to be some unique seating arrangements. What are you hearing from restaurant owners and bar owners and so forth?
Sure. Well, everyone's looking so now with the state and city regulations, restaurants can operate indoors at 50% capacity. And then they've streamlined the process of getting outdoor seating and kind of expanded outdoor seating. There's been some wrinkles with that, which hopefully they'll work out. But yeah, so as far as indoor, a good thing about the area, Federal Hill and Locust Point, is a lot of places kind of have a second story dining room event space that's typically maybe used for a busy Friday or Saturday night, or for special events and parties. So hopefully this is a chance for some of our restaurants. They can take that second story, which maybe isn't typically used on a Tuesday or Wednesday or Saturday afternoon, and kind of be able to space your restaurant out where you can get, almost the same amount of people into your restaurant that would just be on the first floor now with your multiple floors. And then when it comes to outdoor seating, we've heard ideas for years, Could Cross Street, the unit block of Cross Street where Cross Street Market and a lot of the bars and restaurants are, could that become kind of a pedestrian-only street, or at least for certain hours of the day where there can be kind of a beer garden / al fresco dining atmosphere? And I know there's some work going on to see if that can happen right now. It hasn't happened yet. We've seen in Fells Point, they've taken out some of the parking spaces along Thames Street and have some cool parklit outdoor dining spaces. So we'll see where that goes in South Baltimore, but certainly we've seen some expansion of outdoor seating already. Places like Delia Foley's have added outdoor seating, and Cross Street becoming more of a pedestrian street, or any other opportunities there might be. But, maybe this is an opportunity we can kind of take what made South Baltimore great, maybe combine some new things that we've kind of been forced to do because of COVID-19 into the current picture, and see where we come out of all this. Is some of the things we've done during COVID, can they be permanent?
So Kevin, as you walk around the neighborhood, you see a lot of development going on. What are you noticing? What are you hearing in terms of new development? Yeah,
so a big story we did at the end of last week, which was one of our stories that got more social media interactions than something we've done in a while, is the casino ownership group is trying to redevelop all of Warner Street, which is a 3-block street that goes from M&T Bank Stadium to the Horseshoe Casino, Baltimore. And they've been able over the years to acquire basically all but one property that faces Warner Street there. So they've been talking for a while about how they're going to do a Top Golf down there. That's going to go at the Barks site, along with another parking lot that's there. So that required Barks to get out of that area, which they finally did. They moved to their new home in Cherry Hill last month. So we already knew about Top Golf, and then there's another plan at the corner of Austin Street and Warner is going to be the Paramount, which is going to be a 4,000 person music venue. So we already knew about those two projects, but we haven't yet seen kind of the master plan for that area. So the CBAC, which is the ownership group of the casino, which involves Cays Valley Partners and Dan Gilbert, who's the owner of Quicken Loans and the Cleveland Cavaliers. He's part of that group. So and Caesars Entertainment, that's another part of that group. and Dan Gilbert's group's called Rock Gaming. So that group is the owners. And what we've seen now is we've seen that master plan. They worked with BCT Design Group to come up with a master plan for that area. And it's really given people a lot of excitement seeing what they have planned there. It's our first look at what Top Golf is going to look like. They're looking to put a hotel at the site where a bar called Game is right now. And the one property they weren't able to get down there is there's a public storage there. And that's kind of in between where Game is now and where Horseshoe Casino Baltimore is. So what they've done is there's a strip of grass that's kind of fronts Warner Street on the backside of public storage. So what they're proposing in the master plan is to make a skywalk that goes from the proposed hotel to Horseshoe Casino, kind of across that strip of grass. And then maybe the first floor of that skywalk, they're saying maybe could be kind of a transit hub. And an interesting way to deal with they certainly wanted to get that public storage property, but weren't able to pull it off. But there's a way to maybe kind of almost hide it in a way.
If I'm not mistaken, is there already or in development a Hammerjacks that's going to be over that way? I remember the Hammerjack stories growing up in Virginia, listening to 80s metal music, and like everybody that was famous was at Hammerjacks, and Hammerjacks seemed like this magical bar that all these 80s metal rockers used to hang out in.
Yeah, absolutely. Hammerjacks is proposed to go in a property that's immediately adjacent to where the Paramount Baltimore it is. They're kind of split by the Russell Street /295 ramp coming into the city, where the Paramount's on the east side of that bridge and the Hammerjacks is on the west side of that bridge, and they're literally separated by 80 feet maybe. Hammerjacks is taking over. There's an existing warehouse, and then the back of the warehouse is where a club called Paradox used to be. So Hammerjacks right now is kind of revising some plans, and they're going to come up with something a little bit different here in the coming weeks. But yeah, there's the group behind Hammerjacks Entertainment Group still plans on moving forward with a live music venue and a club and a sports bar in that area. So we'll see how that evolves. But yeah, that's the cool thing about this development is you got your two anchors, M&T Bank Stadium, which is, owned by the Maryland Stadium Authority, used by the Ravens. Then you have all the properties on Warner Street, which are mostly owned now by CBAC, the owners of the casino. But then it kind of ties into other developments down there where you got Hammerjacks just west of there. And then just east on Austin Street of this Warner Street development is 4 buildings owned by Himmelrich Associates. So they just did a building called the Parker Building, which has a really beautiful wedding venue in there called the Winslow. Then the building across the street from that is where Checker Spot Brewery is. And while Checker Spot is open and their space looks great, they're going to be adding a lot more new office and retail tenants to that building as that building gets a facelift. Himmelrich has another building across Austin from there, an old brick building, which they've, it's an office building, which had some tenants, but they just added a new not kind of in the co-working model. It's kind of a place where businesses can kind of get their own small office. They call it a business center. And then Himmelrich owns one other building in that cluster, which they haven't come out with any plans yet. And then you go just east of there, and then you're into the Stadium Square development, which is by Cays Valley Partners, which is one of the partners of the casino. And that's a 3-block, $300 million plus development, which is kind of, halfway done at this point. So really it's pretty exciting as this kind of Austin Street quarter tied into Warner Street is really seeing a lot of change. It's exciting if you're a resident of Federal Hill. It's exciting. I've spoken to a lot of people that are from Pigtown, and they're really excited about it as it adds a lot of new amenities they can walk to. And then you just look at the potential game day environment for a Ravens game or any other events they do at the stadium. It can really come alive before a game, or just maybe when there's no game. It's just fun being in this new entertainment district.
Yeah, it's going to be great. You can use the space, without whatever season's going on. If it's not football or baseball season, you can still use the area, which I think is amazing. If you look around the country, so many mixed use stadium properties now. So it's not just about, it's not just abandoned for 6 months until the next baseball season comes back. So I think it's fantastic. I think Baltimore's headed in the right direction. I want to talk to you about, do you have any news for us? Anything updated on real estate? Anything you want to talk about in that regards?
One thing we've noticed, which is good, which we haven't written a lot about, is the residential real estate market has gotten off to a nice start. Well, it got off to a nice start to the year. And then as the COVID pandemic's going on, it's actually stayed really strong just because the inventory is really low. So you're seeing some places in South Baltimore that are getting kind of almost record sale prices right now. In some cases, they're absolutely getting record sale price just because the demand is there and the inventory low. So that as far as everybody's property value out there, we're seeing some really good signs right now. And then as far as big developments, we definitely saw some news when it comes to Port Covington this week, which Port Covington described as one of the biggest urban redevelopment projects in the country, just south of Locust Point, just south of the South Baltimore neighborhood in Riverside. So this week they received approval by the City Board of Estimates to start getting their TIF bonds, which is tax increment financing. That's a way to finance new infrastructure and parks and things like that in essentially a new neighborhood or a massive development. So that takes the you take the property tax value currently of that area, then you make improvements, and then the property tax value goes up a lot. So you take the increase in the property tax value and you use that money to put in new infrastructure in an area. So that's kind of a way of financing a new area. So Port Covington was approved for a big $534 million TIF package a few years ago, but now they're getting to the point where they need those bond funds to create the infrastructure. So the City Board of Estimates approved them to get the first $148 million in TIF bonds. So that's not going to happen right away. So essentially what happens is those bonds are sold on kind of the financial market. And once they're purchased, then the Port Covington development team can get those bonds and using them. But essentially what the development team did is they went ahead and started putting in the infrastructure themselves, knowing these TIF bonds would come and kind of pay it back later. But that project went on pause, during the pandemic, and is now saying it's going to return to action this fall once some of those bond funds get released. So it's a little bit of a pause there, but certainly a big project, and they have 7 buildings which they've designed and put through planning review and are, putting out bids to get construction of those started. So you really could see a lot of action at Port Covington probably in the next 6 to 12 months, where it'll go from pushing dirt around to really seeing a lot of cranes and a lot of vertical construction to, maybe 2 years from now, we kind of have a new Main Street and a new waterfront neighborhood in South Baltimore.
Awesome. Definitely looking forward to that. And the skyline in 10 years from now will be quite different, I imagine, here.
Harbor East, if you're standing on Federal Hill Park and look over at Harbor East, the only building that existed there 10 years ago was the Marriott Waterfront building. So it could be a case now where you're sitting at Nick's Fish House, or you're riding over the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Bridge, and all of a sudden there's this skyline 10 years from now that didn't exist. So it'll certainly be interesting to follow, see what, one thing the development team has always said is that it'll probably kind of grow organically. What's the need? Is there need for more office? Is there need for more housing? Is there need for more retail, or, even some light manufacturing? So that the development will kind of take it where it goes. But right now what we're seeing is they've got their whiskey distillery in there. They're building a complex called Rye Street Market, which is a combination of 180,000 square feet of office space plus kind of a public market, an event space, and more retail. They're gonna add in a hotel, 2 apartment buildings, and an additional office building. So right now it's going to be really mixed use between kind of destination retail, a market, event space. You got your office space, and then you got your temporary housing and your permanent housing. So certainly they're coming out the gate, making it very mixed use. They continually kind of expand on their park space they have there on the Patapsco River. So yeah, it'll be very interesting to watch it go. And I know once people kind of see cranes in the sky, I think any skepticism they might have about whether Port Covington is going to happen or not will die down a bit at that point. We've been talking about Port Covington for, about 5 years from now. So certainly, there's the initial excitement, and then it gets a few years later, you don't see a lot happening, even though more has happened than people realize. excitement can kind of fade a little bit, but certainly once people see a really, really active construction site, I think the excitement will raise a bit. But certainly people are enjoying more of those Port Covington amenities recently, like, South Point and the redeveloped West Covington Park, and, Nick's Fish House has always been there, but they've seen some improvements there. And then you have Sagamore Spirit Distillery, and you have Rye Street Tavern. So certainly there's a lot more reasons to go down to Port Covington now than there were 5 years ago. There's also improved bike lanes and bike paths down there. So especially, as COVID was going on, you would go down to West Covington Park and just see a lot of people down there having a picnic, throwing the Frisbee around. So certainly a lot more people are going to Port Covington, and certainly that'll increase. And one other story we did last week, which was very interesting, there's always been this plan to take the old Spring Gardens swing bridge, which was once a train bridge, and to convert that into a pedestrian bridge so people can walk from Port Covington to Westport. So that's not only cool if you want to walk from South Baltimore to Westport, but it would also kind of really create this pedestrian loop around the Middle Branch. It would be about 5+ miles where you could take a bike ride, a walk, or a run and just loop around the Middle Branch Harbor. So that could be really cool. Whereas you have the Inner Harbor is kind of a very commercial harbor. The Middle Branch could almost kind of become this fitness harbor where it's less dense. It might be a place to lay out and catch some sun or go for a great run. There'll certainly be some commercial aspects to it, but there's really a lot of park space kind of built into already with West Covington Park and Middle Branch Park across the bridge. And then we'll see what happens with the waterfront at Westport, as that's another parcel that's owned by Kevin Plank's Plank Industries. They're one of the partners of the Port Covington development team. But that whole Middle Branch area is certainly getting a lot of attention right now. We could talk for hours about that.
It's clear that if you want to know anything about South Baltimore, you got to check out southbmore.com. You got to subscribe, check them out on social media. As you can hear from Kevin, I mean, he knows what's going on. He knows everything that's going on around our little neck of Baltimore here. So last question I had for you is, what are you hearing from business owners what can we as residents do better? What are you hearing in terms of, how can we help support more? I mean, obviously we're all trying to, do carry out as much as possible and do that. But is there anything specifically that, these business owners are worried about, frustrated about, or excited about?
As far as a business perspective, and I'm sure any industry's been hurt harder than restaurants and kind of boutique retail, just they've been very limited as far as what they can do. And obviously we've seen them evolve. We've seen a lot of carry out. We've seen carry out drinks. There's almost a little bit of a New Orleans vibe going on in the neighborhood now. Pick up an Orange Crush to go. But certainly one thing I've seen is restaurant owners really appreciate it if you want carry out food or delivery to kind of go directly through them as opposed to some of the delivery apps or whatever, because they're taking, from what I've heard, 30% of the sale at times, and plus you add on maybe a tip for a driver. So restaurants are really able to make a lot more profit when you go ahead and pick up the food themselves, or if they're offering their own delivery, go ahead and use that. So that's a way, especially in a time where profits are very limited, where you can kind of help them out a bit more. But certainly, there's opportunities to buy gift cards. There's opportunities to get a lot of carry out food. And now we're seeing, a lot of these restaurants are reopened. So, I'm sure what they'd love to see is, maybe take a little bit extra effort to go out to eat right now. If you're not comfortable going out to eat, you can pick up food to go. But I've been incredibly impressed by our restaurants. I think when COVID hit and we're still seeing people saying that, they're like, oh, we're going to lose half of our restaurants. I've been keeping a running tab of the effect COVID has taken on South Baltimore businesses. And certainly that will evolve as we're not completely out of the woods yet. But there's only been one restaurant so far that is closed, and that's been Riley's. And, we'll see what happens with that. But, we've done our census and we know I'd have to look, I think it's over 180 restaurants in South Baltimore thus far. I only know of one of them closing. So certainly what I love about business owners, I'm one myself, and business owners are scrappy. They're hardworking. They know how to pivot. They've been through tough times before. Every business owner has gone a month or two without paying themselves. So it seems like so many of them stepped up to the challenge to keep a positive head and get through this. And, we're at the point now where restaurants are back open, and we didn't really lose almost any. So hopefully that continues. I think there's some debt some of these places will have to get out of, or getting back to the point where their business is in the black, but they've done an incredible job evolving and fighting through this. And I guess hat tip to the neighborhood too, that has rallied to support a lot of these places.
Keep supporting our local businesses, bars, restaurants, boutique, retail, all of that. As you can hear, everybody, southbmore.com, Kevin Lynch, he is the place to be if you want to keep your ears on what's going on around South Baltimore. Kevin Lynch knows it. He's got it figured out, and he's bringing you the information that you need. And southbmore.com is the place. Kev, is there anything you want to add here additionally right at the end? Any final thoughts on the weekly roundup? Anything we can look forward to next week that you're anticipating that might be a big story around the neighborhood?
Yeah, just a few quick things. We B&O Railroad Museum reopened. Maryland Science Center is going to reopen next week. AVAM is not open yet and actually went ahead and canceled their Flicks from the Hill. So that's certainly a disappointment, but understandable. I think even if Flicks from the Hill could have happened, it probably would have made difficult some of their sponsorship opportunities kind of within Flicks from the Hill, where you have all their events before. So unfortunately, there won't be any Flicks from the Hill this year. We did see Bright Horizons Daycare Center. We did a story that they are closing. So one less daycare center in a neighborhood that seems to have an emerging amount of young families all the time. So that's certainly a disappointment. Pigtown and Carroll Camden held a rally this week. Mayor Jack Young is proposing to get rid of the Engine 55 fire engine that's located in that neighborhood. So there was a rally to save that. That's certainly an evolving story. And next, really every week, we're tracking what's kind of reopening, what's getting more back to normal. And as always, there's a lot of construction. There's a lot of things happening in South Baltimore. And certainly one other thing too is we're anticipating an announcement maybe today or very soon about what they're going to do about city pools. So certainly Riverside Park Pool is a big part of South Baltimore living. A lot of people keep asking me, what's the deal with that? So hopefully we'll have an answer for you soon. But it's an interesting time we're living in, and we're doing our best to keep people updated.
Right on, and we certainly appreciate it, Kevin. You're doing a great job keeping us all updated on what's happening around South Baltimore. And for those that might be listening or haven't subscribed yet, how would you recommend people engage with South Baltimore? What is the best channel for them?
Sure. Luckily, there's a lot of ways to end up on our site. Certainly, hopefully you'll make southbmore.com one of the bookmarks on your browser. We're on all the social medias. We're on Twitter at South Baltimore, something like that. I think there's South_Baltimore on Twitter and Instagram. Instagram, kind of not as newsy, more so just some cool pictures around the neighborhood. You can follow us on Twitter. You can follow us southbmore.com on Facebook. People love our email newsletter, so you can go right to southbmore.com and subscribe to our newsletter. And certainly if you're a business in the area, if you're an institution, an organization, if you have an event coming up, which I guess there probably won't be too many events right now, but really anything that you'd love to get the word out in South Baltimore, we offer great ways to advertise on our site, which is really the vehicle that allows us to bring you this great news. So if anybody's looking to advertise to our great South Baltimore audience, let me know. I bet we have a package that can fit your budget. So we appreciate all the support of our site. It's been going for 8 years. It's been an incredible experience. I get to talk about the place I live and the neighborhood I love for a living, and that's pretty cool. So I thank everybody for allowing that to be a possibility.
Hey, Kevin, we thank you very much for all you do with southbmore.com. Again, for everybody listening, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back soon. So we're still working on our catchphrases, but if you need to know what's going on in Sobo, you got to check out southbmore.com.